Hey, it's David again with another review. This time we're going to look at a printer. This is the Epson WorkForce ET-3750. It's a bit of a mouthful. The Epson WorkForce printer line is part of their EcoTank printer line. This particular model, the ET-3750, sits sort of in the middle of the WorkForce EcoTank product line for Epson. And what really attracted me to this particular model was the fact that I'm looking to replace an old brother multifunction laser printer scanner, and it was a color printer. It is a color printer, but it's gotten increasingly poor on the print quality over the years, but it has served me well. It's pushing probably close to 15 years old, somewhere in that vicinity. But the big problem is that even when it's printing well, when I have to replace the toner cartridges in that thing, there's 4 of them, and they're upwards of $80+ a piece. So every time I want to replace the toner cartridges on that laser printer, I'm looking at $300+ to do so, and it's just extraordinarily expensive to run. It takes up a lot of room because it's pretty bulky. So I'm looking for something a little bit more updated, with a little better functionality, and something that doesn't cost so damn much to replenish the color ink or toner. So after doing a little bit of research, I landed upon this Epson ET-3750. I ended up buying this from Costco, but you can get it from Amazon as well. I think they're around $350, $360. I'll put a link below in the comments, and you can go check that out if you want to see what the reviews are on Amazon for this. But we're going to check out what this thing is all about and how it works. I do like the fact that it's got both wireless Ethernet connection built into it, as well as wired Ethernet. And I really wanted the wired connection, frankly, because I've got wired Ethernet throughout my house, and sometimes the wireless is a little bit unreliable in certain areas of the house, where if I can just plug this into an Ethernet port with a cable, then I don't have to worry about any of that, and it's always available for me. So I plan to be using it with the wired Ethernet in my particular case. But I'll skip an actual drawn out unboxing part, and we'll just get this thing out and have a look at it. Okay, now that we got this thing unboxed, I removed about, 30 strips or so, seemed like 25 or 30 strips of this protective secure tape to keep things from bumping around and shipping. This is what you get in the box. There's quite a bit here. So obviously the printer itself, which has a much smaller footprint than my old brother laser. And in addition to that, as one would expect with an inkjet, it's significantly lighter weight than it is on the laser, which that thing probably weighs 60+ pounds. This probably weighs something like 20 or 25 pounds if I had to guess. You get a ton of ink. In fact, you get 3 refill bottles of the black. They say that you get enough to do about 14,000 pages of black. This ink is all in the box included. And then you get a pair of the cyan, magenta, and yellow refills to get you started. So that's enough to give you over 11,000 according to their specs of color printing. 11,000 pages of color printing. So they claim it's roughly 2 years of color printing and black and white printing right out of the box. It also claims to have a technology for an inkjet that produces laser-like print quality, especially for black text. So we'll take a look at that as we get through some of this review. So among the other features that really attracted me to this thing, in addition to the fact that it does have a flatbed scanner, which is occasionally nice to be able to have that option when you can't feed things through. It does also have an automatic document feeder option as well that you can fold out from the top. All these little plastic panels, honestly, they feel a little bit flimsy, like they have sort of a brittle, kind of a plasticky feel, but I think that's pretty much standard grade for the day. But in addition to that, this unit also has automatic 2-sided printing. So essentially it's a duplex type printer in a really small form factor. So I found that to be quite attractive. My old brother laser printer does not have duplex printing. So that'll be a nice thing. I can print a lot less pages now when I'm printing user manuals and things like that I sometimes do. So let's have a look and see how it goes in terms of doing the initial ink fill. Supposedly, this is like a no-spill sort of technology they have built into these bottles and the tank reservoir. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how that works and seeing that it's not messy. You got your quick start guides here, user manuals, and it's got the drivers on a CD if you happen to have a CD drive. I don't think my PC even has a CD drive anymore. So I will be downloading that from the Epson website. And something I'm also looking forward to is having, hopefully, something with much more contemporary drivers for, say, Windows 10. I think they stopped developing the old Brother printer drivers for my laser printer back in Windows Vista. So it's been a while. So I'm looking for something that's got a little bit more functionality and compatibility with today's Windows 10 operating systems. So having said that, let's take a look and see how we get the ink into this thing so we can start using it. All right, so ready to put the ink in this thing. I actually just filmed it, and for some reason the camera shut off and I didn't realize it, and I didn't get any of the ink filling process, which I felt was really an important thing to show. So let's go ahead and redo that. I'm not going to be able to actually fill it, but I will describe the process in as much detail as I can. So we open up the two panels here, so get down into the main print head compartment, and then this hinges out to expose the reservoir compartment. So essentially, if we're going to do the black, we just pull up the black cap, and then these actually unscrew, and there is a sort of a spring-loaded plunger in there that keeps you from spilling this until you've actually put it down on the receptacle. So essentially all you do is line up the little brackets here and push it down. And as soon as you push it down, it starts releasing the ink. It takes about a minute or so to fill each one. You kind of hear it stop filling when it's done. But it was extremely easy to do. And when you're done, you just lift it straight off. It literally does not drip even a little bit. None of them did. And it didn't, so I didn't make any mess. And this is by far the easiest ink refill process I think I have seen. So I'm really impressed with the design of the EcoTank setup so far. Now you just repeat that on the cyan, magenta, and yellow, and it takes no time whatsoever. You'll notice too that in addition to be color coded, they're also letter coded. So BK goes to black, obviously. So if you happen to be colorblind, the last thing you want to do is put the wrong color in the wrong reservoir, because you essentially ruin your printer if you do that, I would imagine. So you just line up the letters as well, or match up the letters instead of the colors. So I appreciate that, being someone who is partially colorblind. So that's all there is to the refill process. The whole thing takes maybe 4 minutes. Most of that time is spent unpackaging the bottles. But I am looking forward to the next time when I do have to replace the ink, or at least the next time when I do have to buy the ink, which will probably be several years from now. The ink cost for these refill bottles is significantly less than a standard printer inkjet cartridge. So I will put I'll put a little text down here showing you what the going rate for these refill bottles are at present. So let me get this thing powered up and loaded up with paper and see what it looks like. All right, let's take a look and see how we load paper in this thing. So first of all, it looks like the paper there we go. So the paper guide is in the front. And let's see if we can get paper in this thing. Now this particular model holds up to 150 sheets of paper. The next model up, the 4750, I think holds 250 sheets of paper. And I believe that make sure that's nice and snug. And I believe that the other feature that the 4750 gives you is a fax capability. Now I don't have fax where I live because I live in 2019 currently, and we don't have faxes anymore. But if you're someplace who needs fax capability, in all seriousness, then you'd need to go to at least the ET-3750, the next model up. But for me, 150 pages is more than adequate. Let's go ahead and take off this protective plastic here, if I can get that. All right, This control panel raises up. Looks like you can pivot it. One other thing I will point out on the back, this is nice. A lot of HP printers have this as well from Hewlett-Packard. But this is a panel that allows you to pull out if you get a paper jam for some reason. You got some curly paper for something in here that gets stuck in there. You simply pull out this back panel. It allows you to get that out of the rollers much more easily. So always welcome to see some good paper management troubleshooting functionality designed into the product. All right, so now let me go ahead and plug this thing in, and we'll power it up and install the drivers. We'll take a look and see what that process looks like. All right, I've got the printer plugged in, got the paper loaded, I've got the ink reservoirs fully filled, and I've turned on the power button after connecting my wired Ethernet connection. And when I powered it up, it asked me what language I want to configure the printer for. And then I get this message on the screen that says there's a firmware update available. I'm going to go ahead and dismiss that message. This is not a touchscreen, unfortunately. The touchscreen models are available starting with the 4750 model number. So everything is controlled from over here. So I think if I can move the selection with the arrow keys and press OK. Now it gives me information saying the Start Here sheet to complete the initialization. So the Start Here sheet is basically this guy right here. So I'm just following the instructions on the Start Here sheet. And this basically takes me to step 11 on the Start Here sheet. It says when I get this particular message, I can press the OK button. All right, and then it says press and hold the help button for 3 seconds. So help button for 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. All right, confirm that the tanks are filled with ink. So I'm not sure which one of these is selected. I believe done is selected. So I'm going to say OK. And then it goes through an initialization process. And this is going to take about 10 minutes. Now I assume this process is required every time you replace the ink cartridges. So we'll fast forward to the point when this is already finished. One thing I'll point out is that during this initialization process where it's charging the ink, the manual does carefully point out that you should not unplug this, try to power it down, or otherwise lift the access compartment to the printhead area. Don't try to get into that or you'll end up wasting ink, because apparently this charge initialization process does consume a little bit of ink. Also, after this is completed, the instructions do tell me that I can complete filling the tanks by repeating the first 6 steps of the initialization process with the remaining ink in the bottles. As I mentioned in the video, I had about a ½ ounce or so in the bottles, and I was wondering why that wasn't an exact match. Now I understand that I can top it off after the initialization process. Printhead alignment complete. All right, we can adjust this for maintenance and do it again if we want to, but I think we're good, so let's dismiss. Select paper size and type paper source. We are doing 8.5 by 11 and plain paper. So I think we can call that done. And we're good to go. All right. So let's finish up with the software part. All right, let's have a look at the software and how we install the drivers. Since I don't have a CD-ROM drive in my computer, I'm just going to go to the Epson.com site. Safe bet that they've got everything downloadable online. So I'm at Epson.com. It automatically loads the USA site for me. So here I'm just going to go and search for my printer model, ET-3750. And let's see what we get. So I can look at products or I can go to support. I'm going to go to support, and you can see it gives me a couple of options here. I'm going to pick downloads for my printer, and here it offers me recommended my drivers and utilities combo. It's only just under 12 megabytes. So I'm going to go ahead and download that. I'm going to save that to my downloads folder. Should just take me a quick moment to download that, and then I can go execute it and get the installation started. All right, so going to my downloads folder, you can see at the top of my list here, it's the ET-3750. We'll go ahead and get that started. This file contains the installer to obtain everything you need to use your Epson 3750. Well, that sounds like what I had in mind. All right, your standard licensing terms and conditions. Hold on a second while I read this whole thing. All right, do I want the user guide link? I can live without that. I will hunt down any information I need later. I don't really want the research participation software, so I'm just going to get the drivers and utilities. And I think for now I'm going to say allow Windows firewall to unblock Epson, and then I will look into that later as to what exactly that entails. All right, so the installation process took only about maybe 1.5, maybe 2 minutes in real time. Obviously, I sped it up for the video. And now we're going to do the setup process. So I'll click Next. Confirm the ink is charged. So the first time that we put the new ink in and turn this thing on, it has to recharge the ink as I had just showed you previously. So we have to make sure that that process is complete before we go on. So let me go make sure that that process is in fact complete before we continue. All right, so apparently I forgot to click record on the screen and I missed a few steps here, but essentially all it had me do was restart the printer and then I went to the firmware update screen when the printer finished restarting, and it downloaded in the course of about 1 minute the firmware update package, and then it auto restarts your printer for you, at which point during that process the printer loads the firmware into memory. And that part takes maybe 3 or 4 minutes, so you got to be patient through that. And the printer handles its own restart process automatically, so you don't have to do it. So you can see we're at 100% now. The firmware update is complete, and we'll click Finish. Now we get to the product registration page. I am not going to do that for now. So I'm going to say remind me in 14 days. And let's see, you can print documents, photos from internet connected devices. So this is why it asked me about the firewall connection. So there's Epson Email Print and Google Cloud Print. So those are, Google Cloud Print in particular is very helpful if you want to print PDFs from your phone. As long as you've got your Google account enabled with Google Cloud Print, this would give you the ability to print those documents right from your phone. So I'm going to leave that enabled because I find that to be very handy in a variety of circumstances. All right, seems to be reconnecting to the printer. Bear with me while I read all 400 pages of the legal disclaimer. Okay, there, I'm done. Click Agree and Next. Terms and conditions, let's say, for fun, that I've read all that. And I will click Next. And I can go click an Epson account, or I can create an Epson account. I will skip that process and assume that my printer is already set up. But let's go find a document here that we can print. All right, so here's a cool YouTube channel called Re-Ray Outdoors. Let's just print this particular web page and see how it looks. I will print this not to my brother Laser. Let's see what else. Here's my ET-3750. So I changed it to the 3750. Let's just do one page, since I don't really need 2 pages here, and print. So that should be printing. So now let's go downstairs and take a look at the output we got from this printer and see what we think. All right, so we completed the setup. I would say all told, including prepping the printer and going through the initialization with the new ink that I installed and then installing the driver, it probably took me 15 to 20 minutes time. Much of that was waiting on the printer to finish its initialization process. So fairly straightforward. Everything completed really without a hitch. The biggest issue I had with the printer so far really seems to be the occasional out of paper message I seem to be getting. Now I'm not sure if I'm doing something on the loading of the cassette tray. I'm going to do some more research on that and see if I can figure out specifically if there's something I'm doing wrong. However, aside from that, everything seems to be working out pretty well. I am impressed in a couple of the features that I actually did not realize this printer had. So I got the basic congratulations, you're done with the setup message. So pretty straightforward, nothing special with that. I did do a test print just to get some color out there. So I just grabbed a print of the web page from my YouTube channel. So you can get a sense, right? This is obviously not a clear indicator of the print quality, but looking at it, I would say that it does a very respectable job with printing photos and reproducing photos. And I suspect with actual photo paper, it would probably do an even better job. The text is very black. I would say it's comparable to my laser printer, although the overall print quality is actually better than my laser printer. But that's not a statement about laser printers in general, just the age of the one that I had. If you set up the Epson Connect account, which I highly recommend, as the software indicated, it needs to open up some firewall access in order for those applications to fully function. And I didn't understand exactly what for, but one of those functions is this Epson Connect email print. And it gives you an email address that you can send prints to from any email client, and it prints them out right on your printer. So that's very cool. You can actually go into your account and change the email address they give you, which is pretty cryptic, to something a lot easier. And then you can print with anything that can send an email. So very cool. This actually was a little screenshot that I sent of in an email from my main computer. So that printed quite successfully. And then I opened up a PDF on my phone because it gave me the option to step through the Cloud Print registration for this printer. And I already had Google Cloud Print set up, just not with this particular printer. But the software made it virtually painless to set up. So then I just pulled up a PDF on my phone and sent that to the printer directly using Cloud Print. So very easy to use. I haven't done actual photo printing with photo paper on the printer. That is not really why I bought the printer. I just needed good quality color prints for just general purpose desktop publishing type printing. Maybe do the occasional photo, but that's not the primary use. So I am very impressed with this printer. I know some people have complained that it doesn't have a touchscreen. If you really are heard about that and you need a touchscreen control interface, the 3750 version of this printer will give you that. I don't really think it's that big a deal, but there's a nice tactile feeling on the key panel, so you're never really confused by what's going on. So I find it easy enough to work with versus spending the extra money for the 4750. So I think this is a great home office level network multifunction printer. I did not test the scanning in here. Not really the main focus of why I'm buying it. So your mileage may vary on the scanning function, but I would assume that it does a decent job. But as a printer on the network, no complaints right now. I may put some comments in the future and in the video and pin them if I have a dramatic change in my impression over time. But so far, so good. I would have to say this is definitely going to be an upgrade. I should have tested the two-sided printing. So actually, let me do that before we finish. All right, so I ran and did the two-sided printing. I'll put the printer dialog box right up here, and you can see that there's a box that you can check that says print for two sides, print on both sides. So that's pretty cool. And the output of that is just simple. I just did 2 pages of a PDF document, and it prints the first page out and actually pulls it back in, and then somehow duplexes it, sends it back out. It actually was very quick, didn't require any particular interaction by me, and it just worked. So thumbs up to this printer. I'm very excited to have this in my home office now and replacing the old dinosaur laser printer that I had. So very much looking forward to it. Again, I'll amend my comments if something changes over time. So based on my experience right now, I would probably give this 5 out of 5 stars. I've got no real complaints about this other than that message that I've gotten repeatedly about the paper cassette being out. So something's happening there. It may just be the paper that I'm using. I pulled it out of the old laser printer, so it might have some moisture in it or something. Not entirely sure. If I continue to have a problem with that, I will note that in the comments and reach out to Epson about it and see what they say. If I get any feedback from them, I'll include that in the commentary as well. But if you don't see any comments down there, it probably means I'm not really having the problem going forward. Probably not anything to worry about. So I hope you found the review helpful, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks.